Well, good afternoon if you're in New York, and adjust your time zone if you're anyplace else in the world. We're doing another one of our Your Family at Home series where we will be talking to experts, a lot of mental health experts, neuroscientists, behavioral scientists who look at ways that we can survive this in one piece, maybe use it to our advantage to get closer to our family and find priorities and start a business or write a book or do whatever else that we've been putting off. I have a guest who I think is amazing, and I've invited her to join us. And this is Sherry Kelly. She is a PhD. She is very well regarded, and she talks about neuroscience. She talks about behavior. She talks about inspiration and empowerment. And we were going to do an hour-long session that she's done for others. But we had problems with our PowerPoint, so I'm not sure if that's changing or not. But I really want you to learn from Sherry. This is an hour-long session, longer than what we usually do, because I think she has a lot more to share with you than some of the others we've had before. So welcome, Sherry.
It's great to be here, Parry. Thanks so much for inviting me to join you this afternoon.
So what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about how do we help ourselves and our families stay positive through this COVID crisis. And it's taken a little bit longer than I'm sure most of our kids have expected to be home. We were talking about, for some schools, it's week 5 of online learning. No, in the Northeast, it's probably you're into week 4 now. So it's really hard for kids and hard for parents. We've changed our lives so dramatically in such a short period of time with relatively little preparation for this type of significant change, which is good and bad. There's some positives to that. I want to talk a little bit about your top pillars of mental well-being during a crisis and what you can do, what kinds of strategies you can deploy right now to keep yourself mentally well, to help your children flourish through this time, not just be depressed or anxious. There are a lot of high emotions out there that parents are dealing with, and to discuss what those emotions might be, how to validate them for your kids, how to work with those emotions appropriately, and then really how to find some balance in your life so that you can manage the stress more effectively and work through this. You have a really important role right now if you're a parent, a grandparent, a guardian, caregiver, healthcare provider. You will find meaning and purpose through this. And if you find meaning and purpose through this time, you're going to be better off at the end of this.
Wow. Well, that's a lot to fit in, and I think all of us need it. I posted last night late that I've just hit the wall, and I'm online all the time, 24/7, 365, in the bathroom, in the bathtub, in the car, wherever I happen to be. And if I'm hitting the wall, I can imagine how others with young kids at home and other uncertainties in their life and stress and trying to teach their kids and put bread on the table are feeling it. So I'm going to bow out. I'm here, but I really want everyone to be able to focus on you and everything you have to share.
And I want to be able to take breaks at different points of this hour together to answer your questions, or if you have a comment. I really encourage you to ask questions if you can, to make this more meaningful for you. So jumping on to what Parry said, she said something really important for us to acknowledge today. And that is that you need to give yourself permission to be human. I know Parry's a superhuman because of everything that Parry does, but she's also human. I want you to, take permission to feel anxious, to feel angry. There's a lot of collective anger out there, as well as collective grief. And a lot of people are feeling grief, loss, a sense of being isolated, a sense of being really disenfranchised. And the first step into getting through this is to give yourself permission to be less than what you expect yourself to be. You're not in the same place that you were 6 weeks ago, and that's okay. We're going to talk about ways to find purpose and meaning through this experience. And I'm going to explain also why it's important for your mental health, for your family's well being, for you to find your purpose and extract meaning from this situation, what you're going through. You know, I want you to think about also just, how stressful this is and to take time to really be self compassionate and give yourselves a pat on the back. You've been handling this really well. And for those of you who are caregivers of kids or maybe elderly parents or relatives, give yourself gratitude and thank yourself for everything that you've brought to your family and to your loved ones through this time, and for being able to make that transition very quickly without a lot of preparation. One of the things I talk about in stress response and managing stress is that it's not just what happens to you. Stress is also our response. And the response to stress is something that we can choose. There's a tenet in Buddhism, it's the two arrows. And one arrow is the first pain. The first arrow is that first pain that pierces you. Then there's a second arrow. And that second arrow is an arrow that we often attack ourselves with, or that we put in ourselves. That second arrow is not handling the stress well, not handling the pain well, not handling the loss well. And you're really in more control than you think right now. You can make a choice. You can make a choice of how you want to handle this crisis. You can make a choice of your mindset. That's one of the things we're going to talk about today. I want to start out a little bit at first with acknowledging gratitude. And that is something that there's a lot of robust research about. Gratitude is very healthy. I'm a neuropsychologist, so I find it extremely interesting that there are neuroimaging studies that show that gratitude actually lights up your brain. It lights up in a really interesting and important area of your brain, the anterior cingulate. And this is an area that has a lot to do with planning and how we get ourselves in gear after we deal with emotions. It has a lot to do also with how we perceive relationships. And gratitude is something that is integral to our survival. It's an evolutionary mechanism. I know gratitude's been getting a lot of press lately, and you might see it a lot with mindfulness practice. But there's a real scientific reason behind gratitude. So that's one of the things I like to recommend to people is that they take, gratitude breaks during the day. Maybe you can start a gratitude journal at night before you go to bed that actually relaxes you. Count your blessings instead of sheep. I think that's an Irving Berlin song. So count your blessings. You can also do a gratitude matrix or do it visually. With kids, I like to do a gratitude sun. And I have in the middle, the ball in the middle of the sun, I am grateful for. And then each sun ray, they get to write out what they're grateful for or why they have gratitude. The key takeaways for today, I want to give you now instead of at the end, because some of you might have to jump off before our hour's over. And I also just want you to know what to expect. So the key takeaways are this. It's okay to be afraid. It's hard to understand temporary. And for your kids, it's really hard for them to understand temporary, that this isn't going to be the way it's always going to be. This is not something that is going to last forever. And for kids, that's a hard thing to understand. It's also hard for people who have what we call a fixed mindset to understand. I'm going to talk more about that. But if you're one of those people who are an all or nothing type of person, this is really hard for you to be flexible and think that this is only temporary. Words like crisis and words like pandemic and the news about mortality rates are anxiety provoking for people. They're really scary for kids. You might want to think about limiting the media exposure for your kids. You don't need it. It's not always necessary to put in there. Uh, Monitor and limit the media online as well. Perry's an expert in this, and hopefully she'll jump in at some point to talk about that. Before this crisis, kids in America between the age of 13 and 18 were averaging about 4 to 5 hours a day on their cell phone, um, not just online. Well, guess what, guys? Now we're looking at 11 to 12 hours a day for kids on their cell phones. So we've really um, grown by double the amount of time. And that has a big hit on how the brain's developing, has a hit on the behavioral mechanisms of the brain in children and developing brains. That's a lot of online time, a lot of screen time. Um, Kids will sense your anxiety and frustration. Um, you are the role model. And it's kind of hard to think about this at this point, but your kids are actually going to remember more of the person you are, the person that you can be during this time of crisis rather than anything you can say. A lot of times people, focus on, well, what should I say to my kids, or what is it that I can tell them? I think it's really important to focus more on your actions and behaviors and the type of responses you're modeling for your kid. This is a wonderful opportunity for you as a parent or grandparent, caregiver, to nurture a growth mindset in your children. It's a wonderful time to help develop coping skills in your kids that will last a lifetime. So they're going to be tuned in more to how you react and how you behave more than anything you're going to say. Um,
I I,
so
I
in
want
that,
to I
yeah,
want to interrupt just for a second, Sherry. I think this is very interesting, and there's a cyber safety expert who I uh, love and follow from another country. We're pretty active as well, and one of the tips she put up was that we need to limit screen time. And I thought that that was very interesting
yeah,
because that's a tip that came from another pre-corona time.
yeah,
And our friends, our kids' friends can only reach them through screen time. They can't go and play in the backyard and wrestle with their friends. They can't go to parties with their friends, not in real life. They can't get a hug from their friends. They can't whisper confidences. All of that, their whole life is online. And if we turn around and try to limit it, well, then we've locked our kids down even more. So I think we need to be selective, figure out what they're supposed to be doing in school, although you and I both know that they're not doing it. And help them understand how to stay in touch with grandparents who aren't at home
right.
through some of these things. I give my grandson virtual hugs, and my 6-year-old grandson grabs his cell phone and wraps it in his arms, and I see his shirt very closely for a while. But we need to understand what our kids are doing while we are trying to earn a living in the next room. While we don't understand what they're doing, for the first time ever, we have to say to them, get online. You have to be online now. It's 11 o'clock, get online. And instead of get off. So it's hard to mirror and to demonstrate the way we're handling this well, because I think a lot of us aren't handling it well. So
Well, you have a higher purpose. You have a choice as a parent. And I think it's time to be mindful of that. Take ownership of this time. You have an excellent opportunity to set the stage for coping response and for dealing with stress that you're going to be modeling for your children. And it's an important time to do it. This is something that's not only going to ultimately help your kids through childhood and adolescence, it's going to be something that they'll take with them through their adult lives and then model for their kids. So I think, you have a choice to find a purpose in this and take this opportunity as an excellent platform upon which you can teach your children appropriate and healthy coping responses. Even though you're frustrated, your mind your mind has to overcome the frustrations at a certain point, and you have to choose to have to train your mind to be stronger than your emotions, or you're going to lose yourself every time.
So, do we fake it when we're not really there? Whenever parents are dealing with cyberbullying of their kids and they hear about it for the first time, whether the kids are the ones engaged in the aggressive actions or the targets, I always tell them to give their kids a hug and then go into the bathroom, shove a washcloth in their mouth, and scream bloody murder. So the kids have no idea that they have no idea what they're doing. That doesn't work when you're in very confined spaces and you can't go outside and go for a ride or take a walk and let off steam. So, do we fake it or do we let our kids know that we're struggling?
I think, you know what? It's not about faking it, it's about choosing your behavior. So, if you're in a confined space, and I know many of us are, some of us are living, in a one bedroom apartment with two kids. So it's about making the choice on how you want to, number one, validate your emotions, validate your kids' emotions. Emotions aren't the problem. It's how you choose to react with those emotions, which behaviors. You know, um, Slamming the door or engaging in a violent act, throwing a glass or, hitting something. Yes, that's an expression of your emotion, but that's not a type of behavior that's going to be useful for your child at that time. I think what that actually, what the goal is to validate your children's emotions as well as yours. So you can say and share, yeah, I feel frustrated too. I feel overwhelmed too. And I have some structured exercises for you to do that might help you, Parry, and other people on here. So right now, I'm going to talk about. I have a little like an acronym for this. It's called Make It Positive. MAKE. Okay, and you guys can remember this. M stands for mindfulness, mindset, meditation, mood, and music. So these are four pillars, these four letters are four pillars of healthy response behaviors and how to get them, how to develop a healthy response set. So we're going to start out with the M first. So you should have one of these M's, or if you can, a lot of these M's in your life every day. Take time out to be mindful, to meditate. And like for kids, they can do a mindful exercise or a meditative exercise that's not necessarily sitting in a crisscross applesauce position, even though there's great downloads and videos for that. Mindfulness meditation can be simply walking and counting your steps or focusing on your breath along with your steps, left, right, left, right. And I recommend limits because we don't want to um, push our expectations on kids that are not reasonable. Kids can practice mindfulness for about 1 minute for every age that they are. So if you have a 5-year-old, 5 minute mindfulness exercise, 10-year-old, 10 minute. Um, the breath and breathing in a mindfulness practice is like watching a swinging door from your inner self to your outer self. And that really helps them to get in touch with what's going on in their inner world and their outer world. So, moving on, I think the other thing is mindset, and it's to try to foster a positive mindset that I'm going to find the positivity in this. And I'm going to try as a parent to help my kids see the positive being together. Yes, we're stuck here, but I'm stuck with you and I love you. I won't always be with you. I won't always tuck you in at night. I won't always be watching you learn during the day online. And I think with that mindset, it's important to have expectations in your household. For kids, Parry, and many of us, especially, kids who have special needs or kids who have ADD, their structure has been stripped from them, the structure of the day. They need boundaries and need structure to feel safe. So as parents, one thing we can do is make that structure for them. Have realistic expectations, even if it means writing down a schedule so they can visually see a schedule, visually see what the expectations are. I want to just let you know one really good, well, two good resources online for little kids for mindfulness meditation and activities to keep them busy is Zensational Kids. I have nothing to do with them. It's just a good resource. Z-E-N, Sensational Kids. And then Missy Brown also has deep play work for younger kids and also kids with sensory needs right now, if you're trying to manage a child with sensory needs. And then music. And, I love having kids take time out during the day and choose the music for the family, have a dance party, make your kids feel like they have a sense of control in something. I'm going to talk about the control issue because that's where a lot of the anger is coming from. Now I'm going to move to the A in the make it positive. The A has to do with taking action and getting involved with activities, because taking action is one way to alleviate the depression and to also make yourself and your kids feel like you're in control. So the action that you're setting up a time to give your grandchild virtual hugs, take an action to set up a Zoom chat with your friends. If you are doing, like I know a lot of people are doing virtual happy hours, for example. um, I'm doing a podcast with my teenagers on setting up music together and getting a playlist together for healthcare workers, something that they can do. We did cupcakes for healthcare workers. We've done drive-by signs for elderly people in the neighborhood. Um, Try to figure out with your kids or other family members something that you can do so that you actually don't feel powerless.
Mhm.
Um, and then the K is what you do. You keep connected to others. That's the K. I don't like the term social distancing. We should be calling it physical distancing.
We agree. We call it physical distancing, not
Yeah.
social distancing, but
Yeah. And then the E, the last one, is exercise and energy work, because sitting around will make you more depressed. It's really bad. You need to have those good hormones firing, which comes from exercising. Some of us are in places where we can actually go outside. We have restrictions where I'm at. We can go outside. We have to have a mask. I think it's really important to try to go outside and get exercise, even if it's a walk around the block or doing a meditative walk around your front yard. Try to do, we're allowed to ride our bikes as long as we have a mask on. So trying to get some exercise. I've been watching videos, different types of exercise videos in the house and dance videos. Anything that you can do to move your body, because just sitting there. And Perry, you're in New Jersey. I know kids in New Jersey in high school that have online class, which I just think's too long. They're in school from 9:30 to 2, which
yeah.
I just think's ridiculous. It's unreasonable to expect them to sit like that. We don't expect that of them during a regular school day. So before I move on, any questions or comments, Perry?
Well, I'm seeing some that are coming to me, and they're talking about music.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in our Stop Cyberbullying app, which we're building, the kids all said that the way to address it, if you've been cyberbullied or you want to cyberbully somebody else because you're frustrated, that music is a great way to get out of it. Choose the fast, crazy dancing stuff or the slow, calming dancing stuff. So dancing and music, they thought, was the way to get through to others when there's hate, radicalization, bigotry, horrible things that are going on. They always thought that dance and music combined were the secret language. And I like that. I like that you're coming up with that. That might be a good way to get people active too. They choose the music and you dance to it.
They choose the music, they download playlists for each other. I like the fact that right now my teenager's doing a playlist for healthcare workers. Um, there's some interesting research on music and the beat and the speed of it. Um, Perry, so they looked at different. It's okay. I'm giving permission to be humorous, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
you're
so
allowed.
listen, they did a research study on different types of music. Guess which band or which music from the 70s was associated with increased heart rate and better exercising.
I give up.
ABBA.
You know, and I've seen a whole bunch of movies recently where it's all about Mamma Mia and moving on all of it. And I was there in those days, so
Yeah.
very interesting. So
Yeah.
your teen is going to have to share that playlist with us.
We
Maybe
will.
maybe put one together for kids who are at home trying to get their parents to let up a little bit. That would be
Yeah,
a good
absolutely.
playlist.
Exercise move. So the other big thing that I want to talk about, which I touched on briefly, and Perry, you know this big one, anger, anger. We have a collective anger. And I want, you know, oftentimes we're afraid of anger. Perry, you know better than I do. You work with parents and kids who are angry, and you know how charged that is. And sometimes parents don't know how to deal with their kids' angers, and inadvertently they're invalidating it because they don't want to hear it, because it scares them. It
And
scares
we're
them.
also seeing a lot of violence against women, violence
Things.
against children, violence by youth against others in the household that
Yes.
are resulting from this. And it's a real problem. So, how do we deal with that?
Well, okay. I want to first let's talk about, with kids especially and families. I like to have you guys visualize anger as an iceberg. Okay. Anger is like an iceberg. And there's a really wonderful group, the Gottman Institute. You might know them,
You're,
Perry. They do a lot of work with marriage and family.
yeah, content.
Um, the Gottman Institute has actually a great website. Um, so they actually have a visual of the anger iceberg. I oftentimes, when I work with kids, I actually have them draw their own anger iceberg. And that's something that, we can do too with our kids. I actually draw it out. Everybody has their own iceberg. And at the top is the anger, and that's above the water. Beneath it is the mountain range of emotions underlying your anger. And everyone's is unique, Perry. I might have, frustration, fear, lack of control, feeling isolated, feeling duped or tricked, um,
Sadness.
sadness, loss, for high school kids, especially our seniors, loss, of graduation, loss of saying
Prom.
goodbye, prom,
Yep.
not saying goodbye. They won't even see their friends, many of them anymore. That's it. No closure. No last day of school, things they were working really hard for and got cheated out of. So I, validate the reality of that and then discuss it, discuss where that's coming from. And as parents, we have our own underlying anger underneath that water. So that's just one exercise in understanding the anger. A lot of the anger actually is tied up in fear. So when you follow anger's tail through the grief or through the loss or through the frustration, at the root of it is often fear and what you're afraid of. So that's one way to explore the anger.
That's, and we never get into politics, but
Oh, okay.
if you turn on television, whatever channel you turn on, somebody's trying to make us more fearful. Someone's trying to make us angry. Someone's trying to get us to be vindictive, and it's fueling that. So even if we try to manage it in the household, there are all these things that are coming from outside, blaming
Right.
people, pointing fingers, no matter which side, what color your
Yeah.
politics are. It's a problem, and it's constantly coming in.
Perry, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's true because, one of the reasons why they do that, a big reason, because anger and fear sells.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And get used to it. Get ready because May is sweeps month.
You know,
So you're gonna see even more provocative news bites and bumpers and teasers coming up starting next week because this is going to be a huge sweeps month with everybody home, and that's what dictates your ad revenue.
so we've got all these things coming at us, and we have legitimate fears. How are we going to feed our
Right,
family? Is our job going to be there next week, or how we find one because they aren't there now? And
right.
our kids are frustrated, and maybe we're living in too close quarters with our partner. It's great when you both go to work. It's like, I'll take you for for richer, for poorer, but not for in retirement when they're all home. And you can't send your spouse out somewhere to get lost anymore. So there are all these outside pressures that are
Yes.
coming at us. And I guess we have to legitimize those too.
So yes, so let me just jump on that. I remember just going back to something you said about the emotions earlier and the pressures that you're feeling. Your emotions aren't good or bad. I don't want you to, label that or label that in your kid. They're signals. So think of emotions as signals, and it's using, they can use our bodies and our minds to bring attention to the things we need to focus on, or the things that are, um, making us really afraid. And so if you look at it that way, what's this feeling trying to tell me? Then it sets us up to be in a position to take action. The other thing you brought up is important, because there's things we can control and things we can't. And this is a huge source of anger and frustration, especially if you're dealing with kids, because they don't have a lot of control in their life as it is. And now they really don't. And I'm seeing a lot of parents, or I'm working with clients who are telling me their kids have regressed. And that just goes with this territory. I think one of the things that's easy to do and very concrete with kids is to actually make a list, a table, a chart, if you will. At the top, one side is things I can control and things I cannot control. So if we look at the things we cannot control, well, we really can't control this virus very well. We can't see it. It's an enemy we can't see. I can't control the fact that I'm not in school. I can't control even what type of learning platform I'm doing right now. I can't control, the fact I can't see my friends, or I can't go outside and go play with my buddies, and I can't, go to the store even, except for the basic necessities. Then go on the other side, write down what you can control. No, I really can't control this virus, but hey, I can control washing my hands, taking safety precautions. I can control how often I contact my friends. I can give them a call. And there's something to be said, Perry, for doing video chats and not just texting,
Yeah.
because the brain needs that relationship of the voice and the face, not just a text or a snapshot or Snapchat, which I hate, Snapchats. um, so I think that's just, one thing that you can do. And then, you know, I want to talk about this now. It's like, fostering a growth mindset through this. And you probably know, Carol Dweck's work and the growth mindset. There was life before COVID, and there's going to be life after. And that's the message to, keep going with your kids and take this as an opportunity to do something maybe you've never done before. Maybe that there's something your kids can do online that's healthy and benefits other people. Maybe you can discover a talent that you didn't have. Take time to talk more with your grandparents, or take time to write down memories, make videos for your grandparents, or put together the photographs that are sitting in a box in a closet and put it together for a book for your grandparents. Um, you know,
My 6-year-old grandson likes to bake. So
ah,
and they live across town. But he reached out to me and he said, Grandma, maybe we can bake together. And he said, and if I don't have the ingredients I need, tell me what they are. My mom will go out and get them, or you can send them to me by Amazon. And then we'll set up the video and we'll just bake like we're in the same room, which I thought was fun. But I got a couple questions relating to the looking forward. So a lot of us in the very beginning were saying, okay, plan your next vacation, plan what you're going to do when you get out, plan the first person you're going to hug, all of those things. And then as the confinement continued longer, we're seeing a lot of frustrations that come from that planning, saying, well, I was planning a vacation in June, and now I don't know where I'm going to be in June. or I was planning a big birthday party in August and I don't know where I'm going to be in August. And we're going to get a puppy, but we can't do that now because it's taking longer. So they're afraid to look forward and plan because they don't know what's going to happen when they get out, what life will be after, and when they might have to go back in again.
Okay. So now we're getting into meaty stuff. So this is
All
not
right.
this is not about planning per se for your vacation. Now this is really about expectations. And why they're talking about this, and I think it's important for them. I'm glad that they brought up these questions about the planning. It's very important because your expectations very much dictate your level of happiness in life. Okay, so there's science when we talk about the science of happiness, and there's a lot of science out there. In fact, my friend Dan Lerner from NYU teaches the Science of Happiness course over there at
Oh, wow.
NYU.
You're going to have to introduce us.
It's the most popular course at NYU.
Wow.
He has 500 kids. He and Alan Schlechter have 500 kids in their class every year. And another colleague, Tal Ben-Shahar, used to teach it at Harvard. Same thing, most popular class. So, and just by the way, if you have kids going to college, Dan Lerner wrote a great book with Alan Schlechter called "You Thrive." It's a capital U, Thrive, and it's about navigating college, and it's a great book. I want to talk about the expectations now. So one of the reasons why you get unhappy is because your expectation level's too high or unrealistic. And managing expectations is really important. Now, it's hard in this digital age of online greed, self-righteousness, showing off, booty
Narcissism.
shots,
Yep.
rich kids of Instagram, for kids to have realistic expectations. And it's going to get even harder. And this is a whole other series, but it's going to get even harder, Parry, as AI is sweeping up more of the terabytes of what they're seeing online.
Yep.
Okay. And so a brilliant guy, Mo Gadot, used to be the chief business officer of Google X, the moonshot arm of Google. These are the folks that are working on artificial intelligence. Okay. The stuff of science fiction movies. Okay. So he actually writes about this. And he has a video called 1 Billion Happy. It's a great video. Mo came up with an equation. Do you know that there's an equation for happiness? And here it is. Happiness equals your expectations minus the way you think life is supposed to behave.
Mm.
Okay. So I think right now, managing your expectations is really being put to the test, but I think, it's an important thing to visualize. Just let that sink in. So happiness equals or is greater to your expectations, subtract, and then minus how you think life is supposed to behave or how life actually behaved. So, happiness is not this manic feeling that you get when you go to Disney or when you hit the jackpot, in Atlantic City. It's really about balance in life. And that's what the science of happiness has taught us. The media feeds us a very different view of happiness, which is not attainable. It sells good crap. It sells products, but it's not where the science is. And when we study what happiness is all about and what does make people happy through crisis situations, and there's a lot of research on that. Questions? I just dropped that on you.
No, that was good and hard, because we're all grappling with all of this, and like it or not, even if you just kind of live life as it comes to you and just tries to make sure that your paycheck's going to cover the rent. And all of a sudden you're thrown home without prep, without food, without medical treatment, with the fear of the people who aren't with you, with losses. We're having a lot of people now who've lost loved ones and they can't say goodbye because these people on respirators and can't talk. They can't hug them. They can't go to funerals.
Can't go to funerals. Yeah.
No.
Perry, I just had this situation where we had a friend pass and it was a drive-by funeral.
Oh,
The priest, blessed the car um, through the window. No, it's very. I mean, this is a new situation that people just aren't prepared for. Who would have thought this? It's just crazy. And then the reality is, there are a lot of people who have either lost their jobs, um, or they're going to have their salaries cut, which is happening.
yeah. And their mortgages are still the same, and the rent is still the same, and the car payments are still the same. And a lot of people are spending more money now because they're looking to find happiness from Amazon. So there's something new that they want to get. They think it'll make the family happier, think it'll make their lives better, and that's money they may need to feed their families next month. So,
Yes.
um, we have a dog, a golden doodle, who is,
Oh, how fun.
he's really fun, very demanding, spoiled brat, but he's our he's our dog, and he is a cyber safety service dog.
Oh,
So
tell me about.
we recognized that kids who were being cyberbullied and who had had digital abuse and some of these other issues really needed the old-fashioned brick and mortar, and to the extent we could replicate in digital comfort that a support dog would give you. And service dog just sounded better. And I've got a bad knee, so he's technically a service dog anyway, so I don't get yelled at as often by the service dog people. But we take dogs and we take them to schools, or we use them online, and we animate him with voices to help kids be comforted from all of these things. So he talks about when he went to doggy daycare and they were really mean dogs.
That's
They made fun of him.
great.
And so finding those things that find your humanity and let you
Yes.
laugh a little bit, I have found to have been very helpful now. And when we're dealing with kids who are addressing cyber abuse and cyberbullying.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought up this cyber situation, and we're going to call it cyber life, and spending. Okay, so one of the things that I tell parents in my workshops, I do positivity teens workshops for parents, teachers, and students,
Yeah, I love
and
that program. Thank you for doing it.
and I these parents are shocked, Perry. I don't know where they've been. These parents are just shocked when I tell them that, oh, that educational platform that your kiddo is on is actually a consumer platform. It was designed for consumerism. And a lot of the platforms that kids like are there to sell stuff. That's why it's there. It's not benevolent. It's there to sell stuff.
Or
And it's
take their data and sell that.
yes, your children are the product. You're the product and your children are the product. And many parents give me that deer in the headlights look. They don't not know what I'm talking about. And now with, so many kids online for so many hours a day, it's really crazy. I always tell kids, and I tell parents this too, that your diet is not only what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's what you watch, it's what you listen to, it's what you swipe, it's what you scroll, it's the people you hang out with online, it's the people that you listen to, it's the things that you are putting in your brain. So be mindful of what you put in your body, yes, but also be mindful of what you're putting in your ears and in your brain. Uh,
Wow. I know, all these things. I watch Shark Tank all the time. And I sit back and after I watch it, I was like, oh yeah, I need that. And I go online trying to find this thing that I've never heard of, really don't need, and don't know why it's going to make my life easier. And as people are grasping for straws now, they're grasping for anything that'll make them feel better. It sometimes comes from an Amazon or a Chewy box for my dog. And
agree.
we're also seeing a huge increase in alcoholism.
Yes.
And out of all of the products that have increased in sales since people have gone home, it's alcohol sales. They've
Yes.
gone right
It's
through.
up 50%
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And it's, you don't even know where that comes from. It's
Well,
awesome.
I think one of the things also, Perry, that's fueling this consumption is social media, because you're constantly interjecting ads and prompting you to learn more, or to, to buy. Do you notice Mark Normand?
Hmm.
He has a great quote. I love it. I use it and quote him all the time. Mark Normand: social media is like looking in the fridge over and over. You know there's nothing good, but you check so many times that eventually you start consuming things you don't even like.
That's a great quote, and I hadn't heard it. And it's so true. And if you're not, everybody's doing these social hours where they're drinking wine together, and they see that as the only way. And if you don't go to wine, you go to chocolate.
Right.
So I'm, that's my culprit, as I look for anything that starts,
Well,
anything that carbs, comfort.
I recommend that people do purpose-driven social hours, not just bitch sessions, because it just is circular if you're just there to vent. And yes, you all need support and validation, but I like purpose-driven social hours or happy hours. So I'll give you an example of one that I just recently did with a group of ladies. We did share a piece of jewelry, or show a piece of jewelry that has meaning to you.
Wow, what a great! I haven't even heard of anybody doing anything.
Yeah,
That's great.
you got to join my group,
I
Perry. You do
will. I
it.
will. Just what I need is more screen time.
But it's like we took out stuff people got from their grandmothers, or stuff that was handed down, or something that their kid made in kindergarten with macaroni. All these things that are just really sweet and sensitive, and we learned something. My daughter did one where, show something you made at camp.
Wow.
And this was like to her friends that she had gone to camp with, and something you'd made from camp, and the story. So it's purpose driven. It's not just venting, because venting's not going to move you forward or to bring the relationship deeper. So, be creative, think about a purpose when you're doing these meetups.
What a great idea that is. And there are a lot of we're talking about the negativity here. And as I told you, I hit the wall last night, and I'm getting revived a little bit. Just taking 3 hours offline where all I was doing was liking as opposed to
Yes.
posting and coding and everything else
Yes.
has been helpful. But there's a lot of positive things that can come from this. Getting closer to our kids, thinking about things to do like board games and jigsaw puzzles, and talking about ABBA and singing to it. I mean, there are some positivity issues that are good, positive things
Yes.
that we can do. Any ideas
Yes.
on some?
Yes. Well, can you hear me? I don't know if you just lost me, Perry. Can you hear me? Oh, you just froze. Can you hear me, Perry?
Suggestions there other than I can hear
Okay,
you?
I just froze
Okay,
for a second.
that's okay. It's just the internet. It's taking a lot of hits right now, and I think we have to remember it in our prayers.
So okay, so one of the positive things that I want you guys to do, and I ask kids to do, I'm just going to go back to what we said about social media and scrolling and streaming. And you can write these down if you're watching now and you have kids. I always sort of have 4 stop signs to look for on social media. These are my 4 stop signs. Okay. One is, am I seeing posts that make me feel unhappy?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 stop sign. Number 2, do I follow accounts that make me feel like I need to be someone else, or need to be someone I'm just not?
Okay.
Okay. 3rd stop sign. Am I comparing my life, or my body, or my success, or my parents' success, or my house with others? 4th. Okay. And then 4th stop sign. Is the way I use social media affecting my mental health negatively?
Wow. Well, we do stop, block, and tell. And we do it with cyberbullying, but
Uh,
we could take your 4 stop signs and teach them the same thing. So you stop, you block that site, you block the toxic people, you block um, whatever messages you're hearing. You you tell somebody that this is making you feel bad, tell somebody why
yes,
this is making you feel bad, so we can combine your stops with our stops. And
I love that.
I'd really love that, especially when we're dealing with the emotions. It's all about cyber well-being. It's really not about the safety that everybody thinks about, the predators just showing up and picking up your kids and running off with them. In every single case that we've known in the last 26 years, the kids have gone willingly and often advertised for it because they're looking for something they think they can find
Yeah.
with a stranger. And so the
Yes.
more we can teach them to take control and notice these stop signs, notice the blinking yellow lights on where they need to go and what to
Yes.
do about it, the safer they're all going to be. I love that.
Yes. And I do in my workshops for parents and teachers and kids, I I talk about and teach them about the tricks that um, internet companies and game designers and platform designers use to hook your brain. And it's not, I don't focus on your end, the cyber safety, very much. It's a part of it, of course, but I'm a neuropsychologist, so I talk about something called cognitive tindering.
Hmm.
Okay. So, Perry, that website or that platform Tinder at
Yep.
Tinder. Okay. Don't swipe left. All right. It's you swipe left or right. Okay. So a lot of the platforms that our kids are involved with involve that kind of a mechanism. It's a really very primitive type of a mechanism. It's a binary platform. 1 0 on off, yes, no. It's cheap. It's easy to design an app based on that. And that's what a lot of the platforms are like that our kids enjoy going to. And so, as a neuropsychologist, what scares me is that we have an entire generation of digital natives, which are our kids, whose little brains have been trained on this. And they've been trained to basically swipe or react. So they've been trained by companies, many media companies and consumer driven companies, to become reactive adults instead of proactive adults.
Wow. Sherry, I'm advising um, a very important governmental agency outside of the United States on looking at well-being for kids, best in their best interest of
Yeah.
technology. And I'm not sure that the approach is right. And so we're trying to come up with an approach that would give incentives for the digital companies to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Start doing things that are good for our kids instead of negative. And so I'm going to have to ask you to be part of our leadership
I'd love
on
to.
that.
I'm giving a talk on this. I'm scheduled to give a talk on this in Paris in September for an international group on health and wellness.
Well, this is
And
the UK, and
okay.
I'll share things with
Oh,
you
that's
as we're
great.
trying to put together standards to tell the digital industry what they need to do when kids are involved, because
Yeah.
it's pretty sad what's happened.
So it's very scary, and it's impacted how they reason.
Yeah.
They don't want to reason, they want to react. And we don't want reactive adults. Reactive adults get in trouble. Reactive adults can't hold on to relationships. They can't hold a job. They oftentimes become addicted. So we don't want reactive kids. So, in the time that we have left, I just want to give you a little exercise to help you be happier today. And I
Okay.
guarantee 5 more minutes of happiness if you do this.
Okay. Good. Taking notes on
I,
this
I,
one.
I started out with the make, MAKE, and now I'm going to give you par, make par. I used to be a I used to be a golf caddy, so that's where I come up with this. So par is prepare, accommodate, and reframe. This is how you can happily deal with crises and stress. So you have to really use this cognitive strategy. Prepare in advance for the stress or the anger or the crisis that might come at you. So in advance, if you know at 5 o'clock, it's yappy hour at your house, the dogs are going to bark, the kids are going to scream, prepare for yappy hour. So prepare for that in advance. I know my kid's going to be upset at 5. They're tired and hungry. The dog wants to go out. I'm tired and hungry. I'm frustrated. And prepare for a different way. Catch yourself. Catch yourself and think about, how am I going to react to this situation? And that's the next step, the A. Accommodate for that situation. Accommodate for how you're going to react differently. Catch yourself in a negative response pattern. Stop that negative response pattern. Say something else like, I want to listen to you, but I am overwhelmed right now, or I don't know what to say to help you. Catch yourself if you're going to be critical. Stop yourself from criticizing somebody. Take a breath and say, I want to listen to you. Tell me more. If you don't know what to say, just say, tell me more. So that's the accommodation. And then the R is reframing. So reframe this horrible situation that you're going through in little mini situations, to reframe it as, you know what, this was a chance for us to be together. This was a chance for, hey, it's a chance for me to talk with you and Parry today. I would never have had this otherwise. This is a chance for me, to give something to my grandchild that I was never able to give them before. So think of ways that you're going to reframe this to the positive, because our brains, for memory, they're like filing cabinets. You can choose if you want to file away this memory in a positive file or a negative file. Choose the positive file. Be
Wow.
positive. Guarantee if you do the PAR, you'll have 5 more minutes of happiness today.
Well, there was a 7-year-old who's on the spectrum, incredibly bright. And I was hosting an international Stop Cyberbullying event with 1,000 attendees. And we had as guests the mom and dad of a young teen who had taken her own life after she had been raped, and the boys took pictures of it and posted it online. And so I wanted, and lots of kids were attending this. So during the time that the parents were on stage, the kids were out doing posters. And the mother came to me and she said, I want my 7-year-old to be able to sit through that. And I said, no. We had family counselors, guidance counselors, therapists sitting in the green room from when kids were upset during the entire event. And I said, it's just too much. And she said, I know my daughter. I'm going to be there with her. She needs to hear this. So I said, okay. So the
Wow.
7-year-old watched this and heard the story of the pain that the parents felt when they couldn't get the pictures down, and the boys who did it were really rich and they weren't, and all of the, inequities that had hit here, and how the girl felt she had no way out. They had given her lots of alcohol. She wasn't drinking. She was young, and then 4 of them took advantage of her, and they all said, "Well, you got drunk. It's your fault." So. When they told the story, little Roisin was listening to this, apparently with her mom. And afterwards, she walked out and she came up to me when the event was over. And I had the leading experts in the world on cyberbullying and Facebook and Google, the head of Google crimes against children, safety, risk management. I had everybody. You could, Build-A-Bear came, LinkedIn came. They all flew into this little island in Canada. And this little girl came up to me and she said, if words could hurt so much, words can help too. And she said, I'll call you tomorrow. So the 7-year-old went home and she designed an app and she designed a program first. The kids would use Post-it notes to send really kind messages to each other all over the world. And her classroom, they were all like 3rd, 4th grade. At the time, they took all these Post-it notes and they wrote kind things on it and hearts and rainbows, and they put it into an envelope. And they sent it to a classroom in Australia or Russia or wherever they were, and they got them back. And they were just kind things. And so she ended up designing an app called Post-it Positive, and we
Oh,
were
that's
ready.
great.
We were ready to go and announce it at an event I was speaking at with 3 million people in person in attendance in Delhi, run by Art of Living, which is a mindfulness organization. And then 3M contacted us saying they didn't want us to use Post-it, so we renamed it. But it was all about positivity and how 4th graders can change how people feel about it all over the world. And we hosted an event in Dublin, a Stop Cyberbullying Summit in Dublin. And one of the days was at Facebook's headquarters. So until I found out what they were doing, I was one of 5 members of their safety advisory board. And so the kids all took, they'd never had third graders, fourth graders at Facebook headquarters before. So the security was kind of interesting. But the kids all papered the windows with Post-it notes in different colors and rainbows. And the media in Dublin picked it up and around the world. And they said, at this event on cyberbullying, where kids and everyone's talking about pain, these kids are seeing rainbows. And so positivity is so crucial here. And
Yes.
I appreciate you ending on that note and happiness. I'm going to feel a lot better. I'll stop the chocolate, but I may take up drinking. But we, we'll find a way, because so many of us, you and I and so many others, are on the front lines. We're not in the hospitals dealing with the people who can't breathe, but we're keeping those who are at home alive and well and positive. We're stopping crimes and mental harms. So we are on the front lines as much as the rest. And I think we need to remember that we have to put our oxygen mask on first as we take this forward. But Sherry, you are amazing.
Thank you,
I,
Parry.
I know you're an expert, and I've read all your things, and I know everybody talks about you. But as a person, you are just
Oh,
so real,
thank
so
you.
authentic, and so important to what we're doing. So I hope you'll get back, and I need you to be part of what we're doing in Europe, especially.
I loved, thank you for all you do, Parry, and keeping our kids safe and educating the world about this very important topic. Thank you for everything you give to our children and to their parents.
Oh, well, thanks. And I want that stuff from your, is daughter or son?
Daughter.
Daughter. Tell her I need her to be part of my
The
teenager
playlist.
program. How old
Yeah.
is she?
16. There
Oh,
you go.
I've got teen experts who help us design programs all over the world, and they speak at the United Nations and they consult. One of them sits on MTV's public affairs
Oh,
board with
wow.
me. So let's get her involved. I
We'll
can
do
use her
it.
help. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Parry. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Everyone, stay well, stay safe. Thanks.